Data isn't just another electronic system. Geordi isn't just another biological organism. And Eli Hollander is called the Butcher of Bozeman. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 8, A Fistful of Datas. Story by Robert Hewitt Wolfe, teleplay by Brandon Braga and Robert Hewitt Wolfe. This is directed by Patrick Stewart. November 7th, 1992. Where were you? We've got a very special guest, everybody. Can you believe it? We have the writer of the episode. I believe this is his first Star Trek episode ever written. Finally, Robert has returned to the seventh rule. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is awesome. So glad to
Yeah,
finally. It feels like forever, doesn't it, Sirach?
it does. It does. But, I'm glad we're going to knock this episode out because this is good.
hmm
Yeah.
So,
Then
everybody,
that's it. You're done with me. You can wash your hands of me forever.
No, not at all. I'm trying
so everybody
to.
at home, we had Robert all the time joining us, giving us his insights, his memories, his stories, his thoughts, all over our Deep Space Nine reviews. And then we
Yeah.
started Next Generation. We're like, what the heck? That's right, because we're going backwards here. Robert, this is the only episode that you are credited as a writer for in the Next Generation. So this is where you got your start with Star Trek and kind of in writing as far as
Yeah.
television writing is concerned. Can you please just kind of walk us through the process of how you got your foot in the door and got them to say, we got to hang on to this guy?
Uh, so I went to film school for screenwriting, and while I was there, I placed second in a fairly prestigious screenwriting contest, and so I got an agent. And then I was still in school, and I was focused on features, and I hadn't sold anything, but I'd written a science fiction piece that almost got sold. We were literally negotiating with a company, and they went bankrupt in the middle of negotiations. That's bad. I guess better that they didn't like go bankrupt and never pay me for something they agreed to. But anyway, so one of the agents at the agency I was at represented Joe Minosky.
Cool.
And at the time, Next Generation had pretty much an open door writing, open door to pitches policy. And there were a couple different ways you could get in. One was by submitting a spec Next Generation. They would read it, cover it, and if they liked it, they might invite you in to pitch. And that's how Ron and Renee got in. We had interns, and that's how Brandon got in.
Hmm.
Or if you were represented, if you actually had an agent, especially if you had an agent that represented one of the other writers, they would just schedule you. If they would read a sample, so they read this big science fiction epic that I wrote, and they invited me in to pitch. And first time I came in, I pitched them two ideas. I really only came in with two ideas at a time, but they were always really well fleshed out. I don't know whether they liked that or didn't. They didn't buy either one of them, but they invited me back. The second time I pitched two more ideas. They didn't buy either one of them. They invited me back, and I was like, okay, well, if I don't sell something this time, I'm done. Like they're not going to invite me back a fourth time. So I came in with two pretty fleshed out ideas. One was a time travel story that I was super confident in. I felt really good about it. It was set during the Watts riots. It was like a
Hmm.
Geordi and Picard episode. Pitched the whole thing out, and they seemed to really like it. They were like, yeah, but we're shooting a time travel episode right now. We can't do another one. They were doing Time Zero like literally as I was pitching this
Oh,
thing. I was
wow.
so frustrated. I was like, oh my god. So I was so frustrated. I was sitting at the edge of this couch. I was pitching to like Brannon and Joe and Renee, and I think Pete Fields might have been in there. It was like all of them, Ron. I was so frustrated. I was sitting in this
Mount
couch in Ron's
Rushmore.
office, and I banged my head on the arm of the couch because I was like, all right, okay, I got this other one, and Worf and Alexander go to the holodeck, and meanwhile, Data's like doing this upgrade to the ship where he's like plugged in to see if he can be the ship's computer. And as they're in there, Data basically infects all the Holosuite characters until like they all turn into Data, and all the safety protocols are off, and the only way for Worf to end the program is to beat Data in a gunfight, and they bought it. I mean, it was a little more involved than that, but
Yeah.
that was it. And so they bought it, which was great. It was my first professional sale. And I came in, we broke the story together. I wrote the story document. I actually looked for the scripts and the story documents. I can't find them for the life of me.
Damn.
I have all the Deep Space Nine stuff, but I can't find any of the data stuff. So wrote the story document, wrote the outline. I guess they
So,
liked the script well enough yeah, go ahead.
well, just for right there, was that something you already had in your mind, like, or was it just like come up with it on the spot? Like, how did that? Was it
When
like
I
just
pitched
kind
it,
of
I
a?
already had it in my head. I already had it pretty well worked out. It wasn't as well worked out as the time travel one, but I was sort of I thought it'd be fun to do an homage to like Spectre of the Gun, the original series episode.
Mhm.
And I just thought the idea of Worf versus Data in a gunfight, in an Old West
Yeah,
gunfight, was
yeah,
really fun.
yeah.
Um, and so I had it pretty well worked out. Some of the beats that are in there now are still the ones I pitched, like the big
Hmm.
gunfight at the end between the two of them, and Alexander being the deputy, and Troy joining them, uh, and then we broke the story based pretty much on what I wrote, and it was great. I was, a freelancer, but I was in there with all the whole crew, the whole
Yeah.
writing office,
Hey, Robert.
and then yeah,
Sorry, I was just going to ask you just to
no, yeah.
give us a little bit of context here. Were you a big Old West fan? I mean, this feels like this comes from the heart of somebody that's watched a lot of it, but
Yeah.
maybe that just kind of, maybe you just studied up on it to write the episode. I mean, how big of an Old West fan were you? Was this something like, oh man, one of these days I got to write an Old West something?
I honestly was I wouldn't characterize myself as a big Western fan, but like I'd taken, I'd been to film school, and as a result, I sat through, High Noon and a few
Mhm.
other of the big seminal westerns. I always liked the Magnificent Seven. That was always one of my favorite movies. Um, but westerns weren't my favorite genre, to be honest, just
Mhm.
because whenever I honestly like, especially cowboys and Indians, I sort of had issue with I rooted for the Indians too much, I think. And
Yeah.
so, but I just thought it would, at its heart, like original series was pitched as a Western, and there are definitely Western elements to Star Trek.
Mhm.
You know, Gene Roddenberry pitched the original series, and by extension, the Next Generation as sort of wagon train to the stars. Like,
Mhm.
and I think, Michael and Rick for Deep Space Nine were partially at least thinking of the Rifleman, about a single father on the frontier, that kind of thing. So, I think I'd done my homework already. I didn't have to do it again.
Nice.
um, yeah,
Wow.
and that was
Uh,
it. So, yeah.
so let me first say this is like a fantastic episode. That the name of the episode. This is one of the few episodes, Yesterday's Enterprise and certain other ones, where I hadn't watched the show, but the name of the show was already famous.
Mhm.
You know, I already knew about the title of the episode before I actually watched it. And there's a few of those out. The City on the Edge of
Forever. The Inner
Forever.
Light. You remember you're like, oh, the
Yeah,
Inner
Yeah.
Light. Finally, I'm going to watch
yeah.
this one.
So just like these titles that people just throw out there, and I hear them all the time, right? I see people wearing shirts that say Darmok and Jalad on Tanagra, right? And I'm like, what the hell is that? Like, what does that mean, right? And so now that I'm watching these episodes, I'm like, oh, so this is the episode that everybody talks about, Fistful of Datas. That's, the name has already been kind of seared into my memory. And I was so enjoying this episode because I think it had all of the elements that I look for in an episode, which is a little bit of the science fiction, a little bit of humor, a little bit of puzzle solving, a little bit of an A story and a B story that work well together. They flow and complement each other. And also the music was amazing, I thought, as well. It
Oh
just
my God, yeah.
the
The
music,
sc- the
the
score is
score,
so great.
Mhm.
it's so great.
Was that
It
Alexander or
complements
Jay? I can't remember who did that one.
Checking.
it complements the episode. I mean, to the T. And I've literally just finished watching another episode of some other show where I did not like the scoring, and I told Ryan it had like a cartoon type, scoring to it, and it took away from the seriousness. This had just the right tone of the for the scoring, to give it the seriousness, to give it the Western feel, to give it, it was just great.
It
But my
was
question,
Alexander Courage.
yeah,
He
Oh
okay,
did such a
wait.
great job.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the theme, the title theme. I'll keep checking. I know there's some people right
Yeah.
now screaming at their screens right now that
Yeah,
know
yeah,
the
yeah.
answer,
I'm
and I
sure they are. And
always
I should have looked.
forget
I
which
should have
one.
looked because it popped out at me rewatching it yesterday. How
You heard
great the
it,
score is.
yeah.
It's
So
so
great.
great. I mean, playing with that, the TNG elements, but like then turning it into a Western score. I just thought it was really, really well done.
Agreed. Agreed. When did you know that Patrick Stewart was going to be directing this episode?
It is Jay
I
Chataway, by the way. Sorry, go ahead.
Jay.
Yeah, Jay did a
Okay.
great job. The freelance thing is just completely different than being on staff. So I don't think I ever knew until like they told me maybe right before it was shooting or something like that. But like the way that worked is I wrote the outline, turned in the outline. They liked it. They asked me to write a script. I wrote the first draft, gave it to them, and then that was it. Like they took that and then they gave it to Brandon. And he basically rewrote giant chunks of it. I mean, the reason his name is on there is because I would say, 75% of the script at the end of the day is his. I mean, it's my story, but it's definitely his script. Like the teaser is mine, but there were a lot of big differences between, like, I didn't have any of that combat force field stuff at all. My Western story was different. It was a little more about like a railway company trying to take over a town instead of like the gunfighter with the murderer son. Oh man, that's Rio Bravo. I think mine was a little more honestly like a straight version of Blazing Saddles. The plot,
Oh, really?
just the plot.
What's
But
Rio Bravo? What's that?
Rio Bravo's a old classic Western where like the sheriff has this killer in the jail and then his family is coming to break him out, and it's kind of
Okay.
like the big gunfight's going to happen because he's going to have to fight all these guys that are coming.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
this
mine
was the
was
first time working with Brandon, or did you work with him, or does he just
no, no, no.
write?
So when you're a freelancer on Star Trek and you turn in a script, right?
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
basically it. Like
They're
you
like,
sometimes
Job's
here's a
you
done.
throw it
check.
over
See
the.
you later.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
used to say you threw it over the transom, like those those office doors
Yeah.
that have those little windows in the top. You just sort
Yeah.
of toss it in there, and then that's then
Right.
they're gonna go off and do their thing. And like they had to do some of it was production based. I mean, there's some really smart production things that they did in their version that Brandon did, and I'm sure with the help of the staff did in their version. Like they used the cave sets. They spent a lot more time in the Huskow, which I'm sure they built on set. There was, they did use the Western town. I think they used. I mean, I probably was Paramount. I don't even know what
Well,
Western
that's what I
town that
wanted to
was,
ask
to
you
be
about.
honest.
And I'm kind of
Yeah.
bummed because I think I know the answer based on just tossing it over the script, that is. You didn't get to visit the set then,
No,
it's because we know the staff writers. You got to be there. For questions that they may have. A
no,
lot of
not on
times,
Star
like
Trek.
producers, really. I guess that's more recent nowadays. But like, they're like they
No,
got to be on
not
set
those
to like.
days.
Oh man, so
I don't even know if Brandon was on set. He might have gone and visited for like an hour, but like
so if he
back in the
wasn't, then there's no
day,
chance you don't even know where it was because it looked like such a beautiful set,
it was
beautiful
either the
place.
Warner Brothers Western
Yeah.
sets. I think it was the Warner Brothers Western sets.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Their Western town, which is in the valley.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure that's what it was because I've been to Paramount Ranch, and Paramount Ranch, it looked a little different. Paramount Ranch burned down. But I'm pretty sure that was the Warner Brothers Western sets, which I think were used for like Gunsmoke and stuff. I'm not quite sure. I thought it was really funny watching it again because there's a couple of shots where Patrick and I'm not sure who was it Marvin, the DP, they or Jonathan, one or the other. Anyway, they shot off the sets. They literally
Oh,
filmed.
really?
Yeah, yeah, but oh, it was okay. It was Warner Brothers. Okay, great.
Looks
Thank
like
you.
it. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
probably it. But there's a couple of masters where you can see that they're shooting a flat, and I was like, why did they do it that way? But I don't know whether they were just like, it was a wink to the whole thing. It was a holodeck program, and they just kind of want to show the artificial. It's very subtle. It's like up screen left, and you can just see that they're shooting like what we call a flat, or it's a facade essentially. It's like a house with just the front. And then when Worf has the plans for the street and he's laying out his plans, those are blueprints of the street. They're based on blueprints of the street, and it's just facades. Like you can see, like on the map that he has, it's just like all the buildings are like this thick, and it's just like a series of facades. It was very funny. But yeah, no, I mean, they did a great job. I think Patrick got really. I heard Patrick got really into it. This was his first thing he ever directed, I think.
So cool.
Well, it's the first good thing he ever directed, I think.
Yeah,
well, it's definitely
there was one. This was his second, I think. What was the other one, Sirach?
Yeah.
I think
it was
I'm
one
checking.
before this. Yeah.
Maybe okay.
And it wasn't as good as this at all. At all.
Well, he really, I think a lot of like the hat. There's all kinds of like references that I think he put in, the costumers put in there to different westerns. The hat and the guns and all that stuff is just very specific. Each little piece of an outfit is a different Western inspired. I mean, some of them, who knows, they might have just gone to Western prop and costume and rent the actual things from Gunsmoke. Those things are still sitting out there, or they were 30 something years ago, still sitting in warehouses, and you can just go rent them. I did not get to do the production, unfortunately.
Bummer.
So when was it then? Okay, so this is like you this is your first episode. You throw it over the window, it gets picked up. You basically don't see anybody after that. When does this lead to more for you?
So, yeah, they shot it. I believe. I think the next interaction was I got the shooting script, because they were putting Brandon's name on it, which they did back in the day. We didn't do that on Deep Space Nine at the end. We did it the first season or two when Michael was in charge, because Michael thought that the credit should reflect who did the work. But Ira was like, yeah, you don't put your name on freelance scripts, so we stopped doing that. Anyway, so they had to give me the script, or they did give me the script. Because I could have arbitrated. I could have argued, oh no, it's all me, That's our whole.
And that also means royalties and stuff like that, right? And just
yeah. So like I get 2/3 of the residuals, and Brennan gets a third on this. Right. It's fine. Like, I mean, that was the culture, and I'm not. And Brandon did a great job, by the way. Right. So I got the script, I read it, and I was like, okay, well, they changed a lot of stuff. Some of it was like, oh, this pissed me off, I did not. I got to be honest. I did not love the force field. I thought my answer to how he survived that gunfight was better, but it was also probably unproducible, and way too violent for Star Trek. So,
all right.
I'll tell you what. Okay, I'll tell you how mine.
Yeah. Please.
So
please.
Two big
teasing us too
much
here, right?
Yeah.
So Worf has to take on Data in a gunfight. Data is faster than him. Android reflexes. There's no way he's gonna outdraw him. All that stuff. So in mine, Worf just is like, he just takes the bullets. He's a Klingon. He has 2 of every internal organ, and he just positions himself in such a way that he doesn't lose both of anything. He gets shot 5 times, falls to the ground. Data walks up and stands over him with the last bullet. Worf is struggling to get up. Data says, like, why don't you just lie there and take it like a man? And Worf looks up to him and says, I am not a man. I am a Klingon. And he leaps up, rips open the back of Data's head, and hits the off Data's emergency.
This is great. That's so good.
Yeah. That's how he wins.
Yes.
And then the other thing is, the only way to end the program is not just to like acknowledge the barmaid, but he has to kiss her full on the lips.
I thought that too.
That's
actually
how that program
I thought that too. I thought that too.
And so in my script,
I thought he has
it's
to
Data
please
as
her
the
with
barmaid, and Worf gives him a big kiss on the lips. And that's the end. I thought that in my mind, and probably in Brandon's script, it was a cheek kiss. But they didn't even do that. She just like Data,
Nuzzled him.
she just leans up against Worf,
Yeah.
and then that ends the program. It's just like a hug. So obviously, standards and
Yeah.
practices was not even a cheek kiss, was a bridge too far for them 30 something years ago. So those were the two
Yeah.
big
I like
things
both
that.
of those.
But look, I
Oh
don't think I
man.
could have. But look, even if I had been on staff, I think I would have lost those fights,
Yep.
because I don't think that those fights were. I don't think they changed those things because they wanted to. I think they changed those things because having Worf shot 6 times on cam or 5 times on camera, that's a lot of like wardrobe changes and blood packs, and it's like a lot. And also, Star Trek doesn't usually do any of that stuff,
Doesn't show blood.
right? Doesn't show blood. Well,
Sometimes it'll
they do
show.
show a little blood leaking out of his shirt the one time he gets
Yeah.
winged by a bullet earlier in the episode.
Right.
Um, but yeah, those are the
Yeah.
two big things. The other thing that really bummed me out was there was a great scene. I thought it was in there because I'd read it in the script. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I just missed it, blinked and missed it. But there was a scene that Brandon wrote that I loved where Eli and Deanna are in the Hooskow by themselves.
Hmm.
And Deanna says to Eli, "So you've killed 23 men?" And Eli says some fucking snarky thing. And it's like, "Tell me, how does that make you feel?" Like she just drops
No,
into
that wasn't
counselor mode.
there.
I know. I was like, for years, literally, because the only time I've seen this, honestly, the only time I've actually seen this episode is at a screening party that my friend hosted for me at his house, because it was my first credit, and all my friends from film
That's
school and
awesome.
all
Oh
that
yeah.
stuff, we all came and we all watched it together. That's the only time I've seen this
That's like
episode
in
since.
92 or
Yeah.
something.
I mean, literally, it was literally 92. I had just gotten on staff on Deep Space Nine because I got on staff like the week before that, I think.
Wow.
And so
Another thing I want to acknowledge as well is this was the best father-son episode for Worf, who has been kind of an absent
Deadbeat
father,
dad. Yeah.
and they didn't write him well. But yet in this episode, he actually is a great dad, and he's having a moment with his kid. And I thought if they could just write it like that, then he doesn't look like an asshole. But with his son, he could just be
yeah,
the reluctant, you know, play along partner. And I thought that's
yeah,
perfect.
that was my intention, was that. And the other thing is I wanted Worf to look like a badass.
Yeah.
Because I think they were
Because he gets
doing
his
better by
ass kicked
then.
in every episode so far.
Well, they
It's
were doing better. To
unbelievable.
be honest, they were doing better by like season 6. But
Okay.
it was my intent that like Warp looked like so the first time, that whole thing where he just decks the guy and it's too
Yeah.
easy, or in my version where he like takes the bullets and then beats the crap out of Data. Like, to me, I just thought that those were just
Yes.
opportunities to like give Worf his due, and then we
Yeah.
got to do that all day long once he came on Deep Space Nine, so it was
Hmm.
fun. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we only have you for a
And
couple more minutes, Robert,
yeah.
and we really appreciate you hanging out. But sorry, what were you saying, Rock?
No, because I feel like you also brought some of that element to Deep Space Nine, and you mentioned that
Oh
just
yeah.
now. But it's like you literally took a lot of this and brought it over to DS9. Like I said, with the great story writing, the relationships, the trying to bring out the best of characters and have certain elements of their character shine so that they look heroic or brave or more fierce. I mean, that's to me, that's what great writing is about. It's about how do we bring out the best of this character and how can we make the audience love them or like them more. And I think that's what you did with this. I loved it. I loved watching Worf more as a father. Normally, when it's
Yeah.
an Alexander episode, I'm like, oh God,
Yeah.
this.
But Worf was so much
But
more likable now
totally was cool
too.
with this one. Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
He didn't have to
yes.
be
Yeah,
like
I mean,
he
I
didn't have
wish
to
we'd
change
done.
completely. Just be himself, but like not
Yeah.
lame about it. But sorry, what were you saying, Robert?
Oh, I just wish we. I feel like because we had Avery and that relationship, it's probably why we didn't do much Alex. Well, I think we did one Alexander episode. It's not really great. But it would have been nice to do more for that relationship on Deep Space Nine
Hmm.
too. But I think the bandwidth for that kind of relationship was already there, so
Yeah.
we didn't really follow that.
Yeah, you didn't have to lean into it so much. It existed, but in this one,
Hmm.
you kind of needed it a little more because Worf looks like an absentee father, and this actually gives him some redemptive qualities.
It was
Um,
fun.
it's just fun, yeah. This is really one of my favorite episodes. So when did you start getting like people coming to you about this episode, or when did you realize that you had written an episode that was amongst the stars of the episodes of Star Trek, one of the great episodes?
I don't know. I think it was probably. I mean, I think the fan magazines back then gave it pretty good reviews, which was nice and gratifying. I think every once in a while, it's really like since the internet in the last like kind of in a weird way since the streaming era began that people like talk about their favorite all-time Star Trek episodes a little more often, or that they're it's on the internet instead of some fan magazine that
Yeah.
you read once and it sits in a drawer. Um, so I think, probably over the last 10, 15 years, I realized that people had a real affection for the episode, which
Oh yeah.
again, like, I'll take a little credit for it, but, a lot of that goes to Brandon and Patrick and Michael and, the whole crew. I think the story, I like to think the story was really smart and fun. And then, my first draft, there were some elements, but I really think, this, this was clearly the machine of the time
Hmm.
that did this work, So I think I don't take it as, I don't want to say personally that sounds wrong, but I don't feel the same level of ownership of this as I do over like a Deep Space Nine episode where I had a lot more to do and I took it all the way to the end. You
Mhm.
know, I've freelanced for a few shows, or even Field the Fire on Deep Space Nine, which is the same thing where I was a freelancer and I didn't take it all the way to the end.
Hmm.
Those episodes, like, or my Twilight Zone or the Dead Zone episode I did as freelancers, those don't have the same level to me of like, I feel the same level of ownership. So it's really, I think it's great that people love this episode, but I also feel like, you know, in a weird way, it's like way less to do with me than something like, Way of the Warrior, which I wrote with Ira, or
Awesome.
or The
Yeah.
Wire, which I did that was more
Hmm.
mine.
Well,
It's
you know that this episode made it, Robert, because there are action figures made of this episode. I remember that as a kid seeing those action figures, and I
yeah,
love seeing people cosplay this episode because
yeah, it's
there's
really
no
fun.
mistaking it for any other episode. You know
No, that it's
exactly
always fun.
what they're cosplaying,
Yeah.
so it's got to be great to see that.
That's fun. Yeah, it's really fun to see people dressed as like Durango or
Yeah, totally.
as Data as Hollander. I think that's Worf in his Western outfit.
Hmm.
It's fun to see that.
Hmm.
Um,
Counselor
uh,
Durango.
Counselor Durango. Yeah, exactly. I mean, how great is Marina? Marina's great. How
Fantastic.
they're all
Everybody's
great.
great in this episode. To me, this is a
Hmm.
fun episode. This is like the take me out to the hollow suite of Next Generation type episode. It's like
High
Yeah,
praise.
it's
I'll take
fun.
that. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like it's fun. It's you get to see the characters acting a little bit outside of their normal kind of behavior. Um, and I loved it. I'm writing down all your lines. I'm sitting here writing all this stuff down, and I just thought it was so good.
Hmm. I
And
agree.
when you watched it back, whose performance made you laugh the most though when you were watching it?
I mean, all three of them are really, really fun, to be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, I think obviously, like in a way, Spiner gets to chew up more of the scenery than
he
anybody
Totally.
does.
else.
He
But
does.
I was like really like into Marina. She was doing some really fun stuff and switching between her normal accent and the Western accent, and like the whole thing where she's practicing speed draw. It's like there's a lot. She has a lot of really fun moments in that
Yeah,
episode. And obviously Michael gets to it's he gets to do all his. Michael's really. I think people underappreciate how good Michael is, like doing all that
yeah,
stuff under all, even harder than Brent to wear that
Oh man.
Turtlehead and all that
Hmm.
stuff, and still give that kind of performance is really really
Hmm.
good.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and,
He's
and
like
it
Clint
works.
Eastwood.
And it works because he's serious and he's not. He's almost not playing along, right? So
Yeah,
that's the contrast that makes it work so well. Everybody's got their southern accent on, and he's just like, "I need you to come with me."
yeah.
You are
Yeah,
under
like
arrest.
Yeah, exactly.
he's Worf. Like
Hmm.
the thing is, like everybody else is playing a character, he's Worf in an adventure.
Yes,
And
yes,
because I mean, like again, like I feel like people don't always appreciate like the straight man in a comedy,
yes,
you know.
yes.
But
It's
that's a
the
really
balance.
hard
It's the
job.
counterbalance.
It
It's the
is.
counterbalance. It allows everybody else's lines to hit better. I liked, for example, when Marina kind of gave him the look, like you need to think, like she just did something for you,
She was
Worf, and she
awesome.
likes you. You better, something like, oh, thank you very much.
Way to go.
Yeah,
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 Well,
he's great.
Robert, we know you have to run, but we do very much appreciate you taking the
yeah,
time for us today. It's been way too long, and it's unbelievable you were only in one episode or wrote for one episode of TNG. So that's why we're just powering through as quickly as we can so that we could get back to some Robert Hewitt Wolfe episodes of Deep Space Nine or something like that. But continued success. You're always
Thank you.
working, and
Yeah,
you get a ton of work. You're always got something up your sleeve, and it's always so wonderful catching up with you. Thank you so much
yeah.
for hanging out
great
with
to see
us.
you. Great to see
You
you
too.
both, as always.
All
Amazing
right,
episode, man. Thank you
everybody,
so much.
stick
Thanks.
around. We're going to be covering way more of this episode on the other side. We'll be right back on the seventh rule.